Hey folks, I am just headed to CrossFit here. We're gonna go to the comments. I actually tried recording this one on Friday and my camera died. Like right at the end too. I had just driven home from work. It was like a 40-minute video and my camera died, and I was like, I'm just gonna try and redo it, which is fine. The topic is, it's a comment on one of the recent videos, and the viewer was asking about how to deal with someone who is a tech lead that gatekeeps Jira tickets. And the other part that they added in was they often say we when it comes to decisions that basically they just made, and I when it comes to when a whole team reaches a milestone, this tech lead just says I was the one who did this kind of stuff. And I mean, I feel like all these things are related, but I kind of want to talk about them a little bit separately, just because I think it helps my train of thought when I'm trying to navigate this stuff. And because too, for someone who's experiencing this with a tech lead or someone else on the team, it might be the case that some of this stuff doesn't feel like it's as relevant, and maybe specific parts do feel more relevant. So I wanted to start with the Jira ticket thing. To me, this kind of sounds like a bit of a trust issue. I don't know enough about the person who asked the question, their experience versus the rest of the team, versus the team lead or tech lead in terms of tenure and all that. But to me, that kind of sounds like a trust kind of issue. So if it seems like someone is trying to hoard the sort of work streams, I think a couple things could be going on. And I know it's hard to keep in mind, especially when there's an observed pattern that you're like, what the heck's going on? But I try to remind people that most of the time people aren't just straight up malicious. There's usually something going on that you might not have visibility into that is having them make decisions in a way that you're I don't agree with that. But it's also because you don't really see what's going on behind the scenes. And I'm not trying to say that in a way that justifies it, but it could help you understand why someone's making a decision. Because I think that's one of the more frustrating things, is you're kind of you're left there to try and figure it out. And it's dude, what the hell? It's not fair that this guy's being an asshole, taking all the, the good Jira tickets, or the, the ones that are going to have the most impact kind of thing. But if you don't understand kind of what's going on behind the scenes, then it's hard to rationalize it. Again, not trying to defend it. I think this is really just about how do we understand it and how do we make progress on it. So I think that when this kind of thing happens, it's either a trust issue with the rest of the team. They don't trust that the rest of the team has the right experience to be able to carry out this kind of work, or there's some type of pressure that they're under to be able to deliver impact for promotion and to demonstrate that kind of thing. And then they're not realizing it, but they end up hoarding things in a way where they're okay, they're just hyper focused. If I get this stuff done, that's going to help for promotion. This one, in my opinion, can tie into those two other things I mentioned in the intro, which is I made this decision, or we made this decision, sorry, and then I achieved the milestone. Hey, look, I'm collaborative, I'm working with other people, and then we reached a milestone, but look what I did. Please, promotion, I need attention on it. Again, generally I don't find that's a malicious thing. It's just the side effect of the pressure. Not defending it. You'll hear me keep saying that I'm not defending it. I just think that it's important that we try to understand where things come from. So how do we work around this Jira ticket thing? I think a couple things come to mind. One is I would try to, if you haven't yet, I would bring visibility to your manager on this. The other, the underlying thing that I think people should always do, but it's less likely, is go have a conversation with this person. If you can have difficult conversations with your colleagues, I think that you can often make a lot of progress. It's very long term, versus sometimes I think going to your manager to have things figured out might address something in the short term, which, hey, that's still better than not getting addressed. But it's almost in the long term, it's kind of a crutch from two sides. One is that it doesn't get you to focus on having difficult conversations. So the next time that something difficult comes up, how do you approach it? Right? Like, do you go to your manager again for a solution, which maybe is the right thing to do, or are you able to have a conversation with this person as a first attempt? The second thing is that, like, often if a manager has to step in to address something, it's kind of like, it depends on the manager. Maybe they're not willing to coach this person, and they're just like, I need to unblock things. So they kind of step in, and it's a short-term action. So then the tech lead's like, sure, okay. And then like the next sprint planning or whatever, they let someone else pick up some work, and then kind of degrades back over time because they weren't actually coached around like sort of doing the right thing, or, you know, creating a safe place for other people, like more junior, to perhaps take a little longer on work, or to have a safe place to fail, or like to be able to support them through challenging things, right? So they end up kind of falling back into the normal patterns. So I do think that, yes, in this case, you can and like probably should absolutely talk with your manager for some visibility on like what's going on. But I think a lot of the time, too, if you can bring yourself to having a conversation with this person, it's probably going to be helpful. It's just like, it's not easy, right? If it was easy, then this person wouldn't have asked it in the comments. They just would have gone and talked to this person. But this is it's a common thing, right? There's always like friction that comes up in the workplace in different ways. And I often think that going to have a conversation about it's like one of the best things you can do. Okay, I have to kind of like speed run this because I'm driving a CrossFit and the drive's much shorter than to and from work. The next part, saying we made a decision on something, and I, taking the credit when team reaches a milestone. On the we thing, I tried to walk through an example the first time I recorded this, which is like, I think this can be the result of, like, again, I don't think it's necessarily malicious, which might be hard for some people to like agree with, because you might say like, how else could this possibly be, like this person's being a jackass. I get it. But I just genuinely don't really feel that that's like a, like the first type of thing that someone's focused on is like they're trying to sabotage or whatever. I think personally, because I asked this person in the comments when they asked this question, I said, like, do you have more context around this? Like, is this a one-time thing? Is this something that just you've experienced? Like, can you share a little bit more? Not because I'm like doubting them, but just because I'm curious, like what direction to kind of focus on for this. I'm gonna get around this truck. 1 sec. Whew, okay. But yeah, I wanted a little bit more context so I could understand the scenario better and see how I might navigate it. But I had said, like, in the last recording attempt, hey, like, are other people going through this? Is this a one-time thing? Because, like, maybe what's happening, and it's kind of like, I don't know, like the opposite of bystander effect, where, say you're in a team setting and this person's doing this, where they're like, no, like, we made this decision, and, like, you have literal proof on like a design document that like everyone else was saying the same thing. I think a couple things you can do. One is, like, I don't think that, and again, this is hard, I don't think trying to go into it being like, I'm going to prove this person wrong is like the right mentality, because you're just kind of responding based on your emotions, right? Like, obviously, if this person's making you feel crappy about things, like, I get that, one of the natural responses, like, you kind of want to, rub it in their face back at them, but that, like, it just doesn't help, and like it doesn't really move things forward, I think, for the most part. But I think something that happens is like, if no one steps up to correct this person or to bring attention to it, then no one does, right? Like, so, and they'll keep kind of doing this behavior. So I think that if you're in a group situation and someone does this, like, I would recommend kind of like standing up for yourself or for the group and being like, hey, like, actually, you know, there was a disagreement on this still, and I don't think that it's been closed out. And then, like, if you have the evidence, it would be good to refer to it. And again, the goal is not, like, this is the subtle difference in this approach, is like, the goal is not to be like, and therefore, haha, I proved you wrong. The goal is to be like, we actually didn't agree on this, so like, we probably should talk more. And I think that sometimes when you're in a setting like this, people, like, if you have a handful of people that can't really find their voice to speak up, if you are the one that does it, I find it's pretty rare that, like, the rest of the group who also is in the same situation is just gonna not say anything. Like, and they're gonna be, if they're in a setting where they're present, then, like, you know, it would be very weird for them to say nothing. Maybe they are so shy that they do that, but I think that it's worth kind of stepping up for the truth. And again, that's not an easy thing, but it's all about the approach. The goal is not just to be confrontational and to be an asshole back to the person. The goal is that, like, there is some, you know, unmet resolution, and it's worth discussing that to get to resolution. That's all. Now, the other thing that might be the case, and I've literally seen this type of thing happen before, is that maybe there was a further conversation that you weren't part of. Maybe people did get on the same page. I had even to speak from my own experience, I had something, oh man, it's got to be within the last 6 months. I had someone that was sharing a design, and it kind of came out of nowhere from my perspective. And it was like, hey, we got to get this done. And I'm like, number one, we already have, like, all of our priorities kind of set for, like, we had just finished planning, and then this kind of thing came up, and I'm like, I don't know, like, we don't have capacity for that. But the other thing is, I'm like, hey, like, this design's not done. Like, no one's reviewed it, no one's signed off on it. So I was pretty confused by the whole thing. And I remember, like, kind of sharing this with the person and being like, hey, like, you know, like, doing what I'm saying in this example, not to be confrontational, but to being like, hey, you know, our standard for designs is we have to have, you know, feedback, people signing off, trying to be transparent. I'm like, I don't know how we're going to have capacity to fit this in, just being open and honest, but, like, kind of have to have the design at least finished off like normal. And then I ended up realizing that across 2 different tools, all of the comments didn't load. The comments with the timestamp. So people did actually, you know, have conversation back and forth on this document and did agree that it was in a good spot, but I couldn't see it. But because I was trying to get to resolution, I was working with some other people to be like, hey, just so you know, like, this is potentially coming down the pipeline. They opened up the document and they were like, oh, I can, like, hey, like, I see these comments. So I was like, share your screen. And anyway, so the point being that, like, sometimes there's just things that you're not aware of as well. So making it a goal to go, like, be mean back to someone is just, like, not a thing I recommend, right? I would have felt so awkward and terrible if I was, like, just trying to be rude back to this person, to be like, oh, you think your design's so important? Like, we're not going to go do it, haha. And instead I was just like, hey, let's move things along. And I still felt kind of embarrassed that, like, I didn't see the comments, but, like, at least I could explain, hey, like, they didn't load, and I was trying to move things along. So, again, I think, you know, speaking up for this kind of stuff, it's a hard thing to do, but getting in the habit of trying to do that, I think, is beneficial. And if this is, like, something that you are trying to work with this person on in your working relationship and it's not making any progress, again, I would say go to your manager, right? I like recommending that people start at their level and doing like, sort of direct communication with whoever they're having some friction with, and then escalating after. Okay, last part. Oh, no signal. Nice, buddy. Good job. Is the, how do I say it? Like taking credit basically for things. I spent way too long in the last recording attempt to say, like, I literally have the opposite problem of this. And it's like, I've had feedback on this directly and indirectly where, as a manager, like, I really don't like taking credit for things. And I want to make sure that, like, any team member that's involved, like, hey, spotlight on them. And to the point where, like, I've had people say, like, hey, consider your setting. And what that means is, like, if I'm having communication that's, like, broad to an organization, right, about things that my team has done, then it could make sense, a lot of sense, to try to, give the spotlight to people that are, the ones carrying out the work. But I've also been told, like, hey, if you consider that, like, is this person turning? Okay. Sorry, this truck was turning onto the street, but they were going, like, way too fast. If you consider, like, a conversation with your manager, right? If I don't mean my manager specifically right now, but, like, in general, if I'm talking to my manager about things that I'm doing with the team, I don't need to preface everything with, like, I mean, there's going to be situations where I need to let them know, like, who's working on certain things, but every single step of the way, like, I don't need to say, like, like, if I'm writing up what we call a connect at Microsoft, I don't need to go list out every participant in the project. Like, these are projects I help lead. I can talk about it from the perspective that, like, this is something I was doing. In that scenario, the audience of that, my manager, is going to know that, like, obviously I'm working with my team on these things, so I don't need to constantly say, like, other people did this, and in fact, I need to say more of, like, these are my accomplishments. But the audience can make a big difference in terms of how you're, like, structuring some of that. So that was one quick piece of feedback. I think that sometimes people do this not realizing that, like, kind of that they're taking away the spotlight from other people. Sometimes people could be doing this maliciously. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'll share a very quick note, because I'm just about to pull into CrossFit, that I had a person that I mentor, and they had this experience where they had worked on something and they weren't there for the final deliverable. And someone who was there for the final deliverable, basically, they shared, like, the final deliverable, and then they didn't give this person any credit. And when I was talking to this person that I mentor, because they were very bothered by it, and, like, I feel like rightfully so. This camera got all messed up. I said, like, I think that you should talk to this person, right? And again, I said, how you approach this makes a difference. It's not a matter to go make them feel bad about it. Like, they made you feel bad. I don't think that was the intention. But if you go back and just try to, like, be mean to them or, like, make them feel bad for it, like, I don't really think that's going to help. So I said, I think it's good to let them know that, like, you felt a certain way, that, like, it's kind of done. You're not, like, trying to seek revenge on them or something. And because they were even telling me, like, hey, it's done, like, it's fine, but, like, I am bothered by it. So I said, you can structure this as, like, feedback for them for next time. And so they did. They said, hey, this is how it made me feel. And, like, I just wanted to let you know, because in the future, if you keep this in mind, like, it can kind of save someone else from feeling this way. And the person took the feedback very well. They were like, I can't believe, total, misstep, like, absolutely should have included you. Didn't mean for it to come across a certain way. Really sorry. I wasn't in the conversation, but hearing sort of the outcome of that, this person felt very bad, and they were like, I can't believe that happened. So sometimes this can be a thing of like someone doesn't realize they're doing it. And I think that's important. Again, try to have a conversation with them. But I think that sometimes this happens because people are maybe they have the wrong incentives, and like there's a hyper focus for promotion and like, hey, look, I'm doing the thing, like attention please, like I've done the thing, right? And that can be one of the reasons it happens. Again, if you're trying to have a conversation with this person to bring attention to it, you don't have to be their manager. I understand that. If that's not making any progress or they're not acknowledging it or anything, then like I would go have a conversation with your manager about it and say, like, hey, this is making me or people on the team feel like, our accomplishments aren't being acknowledged. But you can probably see the pattern across all three of these, which is like, I recommend that you go have a conversation with the person. And then from there, escalate as necessary. But I don't believe a lot of this stuff comes from a malicious place. It's just kind of like crappy habits that people pick up. So hope that helps. I think if I had a little bit more context, then it would be a little bit less generic, but starting point. So thanks so much for watching. If you have questions, leave them below in the comments. Otherwise, go to codecommute.com and you can submit your questions anonymously. Thanks and take care.